Hi, Vidhi.
Hi, Pauline. How are you?
I'm good. What about you?
I'm good. I'm good.
You ready?
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Just to let you know, I wanted to connect a little bit before just to make sure that we were ready. If it's okay with you, I would like to take 5 minutes at the beginning to introduce YEAST and YFS India Alliance, and then leave the floor to you, if that's fine. 10, maximum 7-8 minutes.
Absolutely. No problem.
Awesome. And then, do you need any moderation during the event or not really?
I was actually thinking that will it be possible for us to launch a small poll so that I know how many of them have actually undertaken a crowdfunding project? Because I was thinking that if we have a crowd which already understands what crowdfunding is, maybe I can go more into details quicker, or else I'll build it up for them. So it would be great if you could take a quick poll.
Got it. So I am not the host of the event right now. Maybe Barupa, you can make me host and I can try and see what is possible with the poll. Also, for the couple of people who are already with us, thank you so much. I don't know if they can hear us. I think you can. We will start as planned in 15 minutes. So we're just adjusting a few things with our speaker Vadehi, and we will start exactly at 3 p.m. Make yourself comfortable, grab a cup of coffee or a glass of water, and we'll start the session on time. Okay, regarding the poll, Vadehi, let me see. 1 second. Aparupa, I'm guessing you are behind YEAST. I don't have the poll option. Do you have it or not? Aparupa, can you hear me?
Yes, I said I'm checking.
Your voice is not clear. I couldn't hear. Okay, thank you. Let us know. Worst case scenario, Vadehi, it might depend on the format that we have chosen for this webinar versus meeting. I think this one is a meeting because we wanted interaction with the participants. Is there maybe what we can do is having them raise their hands, for example, if we have the vision on everyone? I think that would be
Absolutely. That's okay. In fact, we can do a hand raising also. That will work.
Yeah, something like that. I think that would be good. Can you check under more options? I am not the host anymore. Hello, everyone who have already joined us. Thank you so much. I can see a few of you, Christophe, Kundan. Thank you so much for joining. We will start in 14 minutes. Make yourself comfortable. Okay. No, in the more options, Aparupa, I have live on Facebook, live on Workplace, live on YouTube, live on something else. I don't have any poll.
That's the same for me when I actually I'll make you the host for a minute. Can you check if you're getting the poll option?
If it's not there, that's all right. I mean, it's not crucial. I just thought I'll ask if it's possible.
No, that's a great. Let's ask anyway. Maybe we can have a sense with raised hands or something like that. Yeah,
absolutely.
And so, would you need any moderation specifically, Vadehi, for your time today, or no? Or you're taking?
I think it's fine. I mean, I don't need it. But if you feel I'm exceeding, maybe at the end you can give me a small indicator.
Sure. No problem. I will give you a sign somehow. No issues. And another question that we had from the participants is, if you have materials to show them, maybe a couple of slides or links, are we going to share it with all of them after the session? Is it possible?
Yes, absolutely. So I do not have a very lengthy presentation because I personally do not believe in one. So I have a lot of examples to show them. So if they need, I can share all the examples that I showed. We can give them as a reference.
Yeah, exactly. Any reference links, etc., that they're talking about, I think would be good to add in the chat if you have it handy. Otherwise, we will also put them into the follow-up email after the event.
Absolutely.
Any other specific question, Vaidehi? Otherwise, we can also grab ourselves a coffee and come back in 10 minutes.
I think nothing as of now. I have everything. Thanks.
Okay, great. Awesome. So let's see you in 10 minutes. Everyone who is already there, the participants, thank you so much for joining early. You're wonderful. We will start exactly on time in 12 minutes at 3 p.m. Make yourself comfortable. Grab yourself something to eat or drink, and we'll start at 3. See you then. As I start the introduction, thank you so much for starting the recording, team WIST. So welcome to all of you. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to meet you here. We are very excited for this masterclass on crowdfunding, and which is a very, very powerful tool that can provide a lot of resources, especially to the not-for-profit sector. And sometimes it's difficult to exactly know what to do and also exactly know how to optimize this fundraising campaigns. So this is what Vaidehi is going to tell us about today. Before she does, I'm going to just tell you more about the 2 main organizations that are organizing this session today, i.e. WIST and Youth for Sustainability India Alliance. So I'm just going to share a few slides with you, just for you to get a bit more of a visibility on WIST and Youth for Sustainability India Alliance. Can you see my screen? Can I have someone to tell me that? Yes?
Yes, it's visible.
Great, thank you. So WIST is an aggregating platform that basically focuses on East and Northeast India, hence the WIST name to it. We are looking at aggregating and creating more and more bonds and connections and collaborations in East and Northeast India among NGOs, social enterprises, social enterprises, startups, educational institutions, impact investment organizations, in order to achieve especially Sustainable Development Goal number 17, partnerships for the goal. And we do look at the 17 SDGs as an overall ambit, an overarching framework, which is very much interconnected, and therefore we do not discriminate based on SDGs. If you are an organization that is impact focused and either based in East and Northeast India or with activities in East and Northeast India, do join the WIST network. We have a lot of opportunities and projects going on, especially in terms of, as you will see, just in terms of, as you see here, some photos of what we've done already in the past. We focus mainly on 4 verticals: education and awareness, projects and campaigns, research and impact studies, and training. So we have all of these activities that are only possible because we know each other, because we work together, because we create collective impact by combining our resources. So if you haven't done so yet, if you have activities in East and Northeast India on any of the SDGs, please, if not already done, join the WIST network. Enakshi, please send, if not already done, the link to the WIST website and the registration link. One last thing that I wanted to show you and to celebrate today with you here is that under the WIST project and network, today this program is the 100th project, program, initiative that has been organized and or supported by WIST. So we're very happy to have you on this specific occasion. And today, officially 124 organizations are part of the network. So if you want to gather more resources and get to know more people, this is a very good place to be in. And I will also spend a couple of minutes telling you about the other organization that is organizing this program along with WIST, the Youth for Sustainability India Alliance. I am also going to share my screen for the same. I hope you will be able to see it. Give me 1 second. Yes. There you go. So the Youth for Sustainability India Alliance is also very much a believer in SDG 17 consensus building and collaboration. It is also a community of organization. It is also an alliance of organization working towards the same goals, right? With the vision that is the following: to be the driving force in the decade of action for responsible consumption and production and climate action in India, that is SDG 12 and 13, using and building consensus for individual, civil society, corporate and government policy action. So the difference between WIST and Youth for Sustainability India Alliance is that WIST is SDG agnostic and focusing on East and Northeast India, while the Youth for Sustainability India Alliance focuses on 2 SDGs, 12 and 13, and is very much focused on using the youth to accelerate this transition towards SDG 12 and 13, and is also pan-India. That's also a difference between the two. The Alliance focuses on youth empowerment, youth partnerships, and youth guidance. And today we have 39 members. It was launched very recently, and last December we have monthly meetups and such master classes and expert sessions relatively on a regular basis, along with a lot of other collaboration opportunities. So again, if you feel concerned by the scope of this alliance, please join in. I think Enakshi must have shared with you the link to the presentation of the Alliance, as well as the link to register and to become an Alliance member. Voila, that is it for WIST and Youth for Sustainability India Alliance. I'm going to leave the mic to Vaidehi. We are going to be together until 4:30 with a lot of space for conversation, for Q&As, in order to empower you to understand how crowdfunding works in depth. Right, this is going to be very important. Thank you so much, Vaidehi, for your time and for being here today. Over to you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Pauline. Hi, good afternoon, all of you who have joined. My God, I see a really long strength here. So I'll start with my basic introduction. My name is Vaidehi, and I head the Strategic Partnerships and Collaborations Department at Ketto. So to give you a brief introduction of my organization, we are Asia's largest crowdfunding platform, and we cater to several different causes, not just community development, but also healthcare, medical, and personal causes. And if you look at it, in the last 2-3 years, we are very happy to be able to come to rescue for the COVID cause. Especially during COVID, we see that there are so many more people who are using crowdfunding and Keto than there were before. So with that, I want to actually, before I go ahead and talk to you all about what is crowdfunding and how is it used, I really want to know what, that how much do you know already about crowdfunding? So Pauline, will it be possible for us to take the poll right now?
Yes, sure. Aparupa, could you launch it from your end? I think you have it. Just to mention for everyone, you will have access to the recordings, you will have access to the slides and all of the resources that are mentioned today. So don't worry about this. You will get access to all of that after the session. For now, the poll is ongoing. Have you ever raised funds using crowdfunding? Can you see yourself, Vadehi?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Yes or no? Have you ever raised funds using crowdfunding? We have an interesting split here in the audience. I believe most people would have voted. Yeah, a couple more, but I think you have an overview with these.
Pauline, unfortunately, I can't see the results. I can't. I was only asked the question, but not the results.
Got it. I think when we end the poll, we will be able to see.
Yeah, people are still responding. So can I give them a 2 minutes?
Sure.
Please answer the poll. We have almost all of the answers. Yeah, I think we have everyone at Aparupa. You can go ahead and end the poll.
Awesome. Okay, got it. So I see that a portion of you have raised funds and a lot of you have not. No worries. We will actually go from the scratch what crowdfunding is used for and how it can be used and how you can come up with like a year-long strategies for crowdfunding. So I'll start with the basic question. That is, what is crowdfunding? I believe that crowdfunding is not something that's new to the market, especially in India. I believe that the whole concept of collecting donations has been there ingrained from a very long time. So whenever I'm talking to people, I always give this one example, that is, whenever you go to a religious place, maybe a temple, you always have that donation box, the daan peti. So collecting money in those donation boxes is exactly what we are also doing. This is what crowdfunding is. The only new thing that Keto or any other crowdfunding platform brings to the table is the inculcation of technology to make it more efficient. The whole process of collecting funds from community in smaller portions. So that's what is crowdfunding. And today we'll understand how to organize this particular initiative in such a way that you can actually maximize the amount that you can raise through this particular technique. So before I move ahead, I want to ask, I think, please feel free to unmute yourself and answer. So can one of you talk about a crowdfunding activity that you must have taken on? Is that all right, Pauline?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for that, you will, for all of you, raise your hand and we will promote you as a panelist for you to be able to show your face and speak directly. Okay. Yeah, so what is your question, Vadehi?
That can one of you, out of the 37% of the people who have answered yes, can one of you just tell me what was your initiative and what exactly did you do in that initiative?
Please raise your hand to share and we will promote you so that you can speak directly. For now, I don't see any raised hands. Yes, Ajay, go ahead. Unmute yourself, we can't hear you. Ajay?
Yeah, I'm audible.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yep.
Yeah. So, hi, Vadehi, hi, Pauline. So, the initiative that I raised money for was actually we were trying to raise money for a healthcare related NGO. It's called Hive India, where I was volunteering, and we
Alright.
wanted to buy a new ambulance, and for that we had started the crowdfunding this thing. We had received some funds from some of our supporters, but we wanted to bridge that gap, and that's for what it was way back in 2014, I think.
Understood.
That was
So
one of my first campaigns.
great. That's actually good because I think in 2014, not a lot of people knew about crowdfunding.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Could you tell me what exactly did you do, as in how did you raise funds? Was it offline, online? How was it done?
It was a mix of both. So we had most of our contributions coming from our closest circle. So what we did is that before we raised the platform, we made a list of the people that we wanted to reach out and was sure that they might be the ones who could be interested in supporting us. And that's how we started. And then we, of course, posted in different groups and all. We asked them to also share it. We were looking for, I think, around 3 lakh rupees as support. But we could raise about 1.5 like that, I remember, through both online and offline. Some of the contribution even came directly, some were from the platform.
Understood. So in fact, this is a very good example of what I was going to talk about next. That is, what is the difference between online crowdfunding versus offline crowdfunding? I believe that a lot of you must be already doing some sort of offline crowdfunding. Maybe some of you take part in the marathons that happen, such as the Mumbai Marathon, and raise funds through the bibs that are sold. Maybe some of you have bake sales. Some of you have collaborated with schools where children take part in Terry Fox runs, etc. So these are actually some of the crowdfunding initiatives that you already must be taking on. So the one that we are going to focus specifically in this particular class will be the online part of crowdfunding. How can you actually generate a certain amount of awareness around your fundraiser online? That's what we are going to focus on. So whenever an organization comes to us and asks us about, how to raise funds or what we can do to raise funds, we always ask them one question. And that question is, what is it that you expect out of this relationship, or rather out of this particular fundraising? So there are different kinds of organizations, right? So there are a few organizations that want to create a certain amount of brand around it. Some organizations want to spread awareness about a cause that they're raising funds for. Some are purely here to raise funds for a project that they have, like maybe they have an upcoming a beach cleanup project for which they're raising funds, or they're looking for different verticals from where they can get money. So you might be actually falling into one of these buckets. So what we always suggest is that before you start planning your crowdfunding activity, it's extremely important to first understand what is your end goal. Why am I reaching out to this crowdfunding platform? All right. So, so to answer, each one of them, let me take the first case where someone wants to create awareness about a project. So when you want to create awareness about the project, it's important that you take into consideration the whole promotion part of the campaign. So for example, if you have set up a fundraiser online, you need to consider how are you going to promote this fundraiser, what the messaging of the fundraiser is going to be. So that will be your key, I would say, your key areas where you will have to focus. But if you're raising funds for an immediate project that you need to implement, like how Mr. Ajay just mentioned that he wanted to raise 3 lakhs for a project, right? So that's an immediate project. In that case, what plays a very large role is the people who are going to promote this fundraiser, and the story, like how do you portray what you're going to do? How credible is your story? These are the two things which we have seen play a very big factor in making sure that your fundraiser is successful. So there is one misconception that I come across very frequently, and I want to address it very early in our conversation. So that is, how can Keto raise funds for us, or will Keto raise funds, or any crowdfunding platform raise funds for us? So we need to understand that crowdfunding is a very organic way of raising funds. So there is a difference between maybe a sponsored ad you see on your Facebook or your Instagram timeline versus a fundraising campaign that you encounter on your friend's feed. So the biggest difference is that crowdfunding is something that you're trying to reach out to your own network. So for example, if I start an initiative, I reach out to my friends and family. So they might not recognize the organization you work for, or might not even be that inclined towards the project that you're working for, but they will still end up making a donation because they trust you or they would like to support you. So when you're talking about crowdfunding, you're talking about your organic network whom you already know. So you reach out to such people, and when they reach out to their network, and then that goes on, that's how your fundraiser spreads between people. Whereas when it comes to a sponsored ad that you see on any social media platform, like say, for example, I come across a lot of Akshay Patra ads. So these are basically sponsored ads. So when you say a sponsored ad, it means that they are trying to reach out to people who might not have heard about their organization, might not have an inclination towards making a donation, but by looking at the content, by looking at what is written on that page, maybe that person might click on the fundraiser. But this is not crowdfunding. This again falls into the whole digital marketing, digital media agency funnel. So this is the biggest difference between a crowdfunding campaign versus a digital marketing campaign. And I see that a lot of organizations, big or small, even companies, make mistake in having that clarity. So we'll specifically focus on crowdfunding using organic sources. And when I say organic sources, then you have to think about who is going to promote this fundraiser. So it is never the platform that promotes such fundraisers. Platforms only act as your technology partner. So we equip you with all the technology you require for you to raise funds. So I'm sure a lot of you might be thinking that why do we need technology, right? So I'll come to that. So there are different kinds of crowdfunding campaigns that happen on a platform. So one of the most basic kind of crowdfunding fundraiser is where an NGO is there. They want funds for X project. They set up a campaign. They talk about that particular project, and they start sharing the fundraiser with their friends and family, or their supporters, donors, everyone. Very basic. So this is what is the basic style of crowdfunding. Let me actually show you an example of such a fundraiser. So yes, this is such an example. So you see that an organization is raising funds for themselves. They have written about why are they raising funds for, and they're raising funds for it. I think this is the most common type of fundraiser you see everywhere. So over here, they would take this particular link and they would share this link with everyone they know, and they would ask them to share it with their friends and family, and so they will start raising funds. So this is very effective when you have a project and that you need that project to be funded immediately. And say, to give you an example, COVID was the time when we saw so many of such fundraisers start. And because there was some amount of urgency that we need money because we have to feed people who are hungry. If we do not do this, families might go hungry for days. So this is an extremely urgent cause. So when you see such fundraisers, you see that a lot of people come forward. So such fundraisers work very well when there is a certain amount of urgency to your campaign. So, so when you have a project which is very urgent, so for example, if you come across someone maybe in your organization who has fallen sick, so we get a lot of such fundraisers where the entire organization raises funds for that particular member. We see that those organizations raise funds very quickly. But if your programs are more sustainability driven, or something that's long-term initiative rather than an immediate relief. In those cases, we need to have a longer plan and a strong strategy. So what we suggest is that these kind of fundraisers can be set up if you are just introducing your organization to crowdfunding. When they have never done an activity like this, it's awesome. You can actually start using such a fundraiser, write about your fundraiser, give all the description that you have about why are you raising funds, what is it the funds are going to be used for, etc. And you can set this up. But what will happen is that, say, for example, in this particular case, they raised 31 lakhs with the help of 1,500 donors, right? So ask yourself, if you were this organization and you required another 31 lakhs next quarter, do you think these 1,500 people would be as willing to donate again in just 2 months as they are now? They might not, right? So it's very possible that when you're looking at a long-term solution, like an organization that needs to rely on crowdfunding for a longer period, it might be difficult because you will end up reaching out to the same network again and again. So this might work really well for one time, but when you're doing something very similar the second time, you might see people are not as interested because it's not new anymore. People already know about this. They must have already made a donation. Then what do you do? In such cases, what we suggest is something called peer-to-peer fundraising. So what is peer-to-peer fundraising? So peer-to-peer fundraising is basically when the organization itself doesn't raise funds, rather it depends on other people to raise funds for that organization. So that particular concept is called peer-to-peer fundraising, because then what is happening is that in this case, the NGO is exhausting its network to raise funds. But say, for example, I raise funds for this particular NGO. In that case, what happens is that I will reach out to my friends and family. And it's possible that none of them already donate to this organization, right? So the NGO is not depleting their resources, but they are actually depending on me to share funds. And say, for example, I might not have that big a network, so I might not bring in 31 lakhs, but rather I might be able to get only 25,000 rupees. Okay, only 25,000 rupees from, say, six donors. So in that case, now what has happened is that I have spread awareness about this organization among maybe 250 people. And out of 250 people, I have gotten 6 new donors added to the pool. So say, for example, if this organization had already 1,500 donors, now they have 1,506 donors. I know it doesn't seem like a lot. I know that, you might feel that, oh, this is, if we do that, there'll be so much effort that goes into convincing someone and we will end up with such a small amount. So let me show you an example. So this is an organization that conducts once a year crowdfunding challenge for their volunteers. So they have volunteers pan India, and they ask all these volunteers to come take part in this challenge. And in 1 month, this was conducted in February. It started in February, ended at the end of February. In 1 month, they were able to raise 1.45 crores with the help of 1,700 volunteers. So this is exactly what I was coming to. That although you might think that one person might not make a lot of difference, but if you are successful in getting more people to come and raise funds for you, they will kind of create a support system around your NGO where they can reach out to their network and raise funds. And when the quantity is large, you will see that even small amounts that are being raised will ultimately sum into something really large. So to give you an example, you see that people who raise funds under this particular activity, some of them have done really well. Some of them have raised more than 1 lakh. Wow. But most people have not raised much. They've actually raised very little, 12,000, 15,000. Maybe they only had their 3 supporters, 19 supporters, resulting in 12,000 rupees. So you see that ultimately not a lot of money was raised by individual person, but when you look at the sheer volume of how many people came together to in this particular activity, you see that 1.45 crores was raised. And believe me, this is not even restricted funding. This is actually very useful for the organization, because it can be then channeled into various different aspects, which I'm sure you all already understand how difficult is it, especially when you have restricted kind of funding. So we always suggest that if you have your crowdfunding plan should be completely dependent on what your end goal is. I'll come back to where I started. What is your plan? What is your end goal? Always think about it. If it is a one-off activity in a year, say for example, you have this annual charity charity program that you do every year. Maybe you can integrate crowdfunding into it and set up a fundraiser like this and raise all the money you want to, and that's it, stop. But if you want to set up a system where you're raising funds every month, every quarter, maybe twice a year, in that case, we always suggest that go with the peer-to-peer fundraising method. So this is the only method by which you can sustainably increase the amount of funds raised. So this organization did not just come up with, 1.45 crores one day. So when they raised funds on a platform earlier, they only raised around 26 lakhs. Then the next year they increased from 26 lakhs to 44 lakhs. And then the next year they crossed a crore. Another year they crossed almost 1.8 crores. And this year they again crossed 1.5 crores. So it will take some time for you to plan, and with the plan that you have, you will be able to come up with such support system, people who would want to come back and start their fundraisers once more. All right. So now another very important question that comes is that how to choose people who can raise funds. So let me give you an instance. Actually, this actually happened to me, that one of the organizations called me saying that I have convinced 100 people to take up this challenge activity for me. So can you please help us create 100 fundraisers for all of them? We were ready. We were like, okay, sure, please let us know. So, but unfortunately, when we called these people, not all 100, but some of them, we realized that the volunteers who had actually signed up did not know what crowdfunding is. They did not know what they were. They were under the impression that they're going to do something more than just donating, some kind of voluntary work. So it's extremely important that people whom you are delegating the task of raising funds, you have to be very clear that the information that goes to them is very clear in messaging. And how you choose people who raise funds for you is also very important. So let me come to that. So there are two things that you can keep in mind. Is quantity something that you can bring? It's possible your organization does not have a volunteer strength of 1,700, right? It's possible you're a younger organization. You cannot gather so many people, or maybe you do not have the bandwidth to take care of queries coming in from so many people, right? So in that case, you can either concentrate on the quantity of people raising funds or the quality of people who are raising funds. So the first criteria you should always check for is they understand what crowdfunding is. They should not misinterpret crowdfunding as a volunteering activity. I have to collect money into my own account. No. So they need to have the right information. The second thing is the right motivation. If you're going to force it upon someone, saying that please do this for us, it's possible that you will not see the right results. You would see the quantity, you will see that 10 people have started fundraisers, but maybe no one ends up raising anything. This has happened. So what we always suggest is that make sure you only reach out to people who have understanding, basic understanding about crowdfunding. And the second thing is that they're willing and motivated enough to raise funds for you. So when I say basic understanding, it also means if a person does not trust online transactions, they believe that cash is better or only NEFT transfers work. In that case, that person is not a good fit to raise funds, because that person will not heavily push the fundraiser, right? So education is extremely important. After education, it's important that they are motivated enough. After these two, you can look at where you can get a higher returns. Say, for example, I'll actually show you one example. Okay. So we see that young children are actually the best persuaders you can ever find, because they're so persistent. They know how to get things done. And we see that so many times that children are the ones who end up raising a lot of money, because they have that enthusiasm that I want to do something. They're not scared of hearing a no from someone. Who cares? Like if someone says no, I'll go talk to another person. But when we compare this to maybe a college going student, we always see that they're more image conscious. They are more apprehensive about, reaching out to a lot of people, because they do not know if, what people are going to talk about or say. So we always look at these factors, that where our returns will be high. If I'm going to motivate 5 children to raise funds, they might end up raising a lot of money because they're motivated. They really want to help this particular organization. At the same time, people who have a little bit of network, say for example, someone whose age ranges from 40 to 50 years old, works at an MNC, has a great network, is tech savvy. A person like this might be quicker at adapting to a new piece of technology and would be able to personalize the fundraiser and raise a lot of money. So you need to be very smart about whom do you approach and how do you motivate that person. So let me show you another example. So so this is an example of a beauty pageant contestant who raised funds. So someone like that, so we actually introduced crowdfunding as one of the rounds of this particular beauty pageant, and they were actually asked to compete, and whoever raises the highest funds for this particular organization would get a prize. So something like that, some kind of competition can also make people extremely motivated. So you basically have to look at these 3 things only. That is, how educated they are, do they have the right amount of motivation, and do they fall in the right category who can raise funds. So it is up to you how you tweak these 3 things. You either increase the kind of incentives. Maybe if you're talking to children, giving them certificates, letters of appreciation go a long way, because they really would love to, get that kind of appreciation for it. Maybe you can introduce this to a few corporates that you work with, where this can go as an employee engagement program by them. So you need to figure out how you present your proposal to people so that they can come forward and raise funds for you. So this is one of the plans that we always recommend to everyone, to make sure that you have a long year-on-year strategy. Okay, so I know I've gone very deep, and I hope this is not too technical or boring for you all. So let me come to something a little bit lighter. So let's talk about a fundraiser. So let me ask you all a question. You're looking at a fundraiser in front of you right now, right? What do you think is motivating you to make a donation on this particular fundraiser? Is there something that you particularly would care about while making a donation? please, if anyone wants to answer, can raise their hands.
Yes, you can raise your hand. Madhav, I can see you. I'm going to allow you to talk. There you go.
Yeah, basically the pictures of the children or the infants
Right.
and mother. Somewhere I can see the fathers also. So all the way it is, there are infants, and that touches the person.
You're absolutely correct. Actually, you're on point of what I was going to talk about. So we will basically talk about what are the different aspects of a fundraiser that will drive more donations towards your fundraiser. First thing is pictorial representation. So believe me when I tell you, even if you write paragraphs and paragraphs about the great work your organization has done, no one unfortunately reads. You only have 2.5 seconds worth of time before someone scrolls out. So in 2.5 seconds, how can you make an impression on someone? That's a question to be asked, right? And the answer is what Madhav has exactly said. Pictures. Pictures are the only way, actually videos too, but maybe pictures more, are the only way which can basically tell you about the fundraiser completely. One picture is enough for you to know what the fundraiser is about. So that's why we always suggest that when you're writing a story of a fundraiser, first of all, it has to have very impactful, powerful pictures. And the second thing is that the content of the fundraiser needs to be in a storytelling manner. Let me give you an example. If I'm going to tell you that there is a school, primary school, and in this primary school, the situation of the school is so bad, it has a roof that can collapse at any time. So this is a serious situation, right? There are young children, maybe children 7-year-olds, which are sitting and studying in this particular classroom, and I'm saying that the roof might collapse at any time. So if you're going to write about this in such a way that there is this roof which is 70% damaged, there is leakage happening in the roof, we need to replace the roof, it's possible people might not get the gravity of the situation. But if you put it in a way that a child goes to a class to study and is endangered by this roof, so people automatically understand and empathize with the situation. So this is actually something part of a human behavior, that anything that you can understand and empathize, you will react to it quickly. That's why we always say that whenever you're writing the content, you have to make sure you have to make it about the beneficiaries, about the people who are going to be affected. It's possible fixing the roof is what is the thing that's needed, but whom is it going to affect is more important. So the whole storytelling style is very important when it comes to crowdfunding. So whenever you write stories, I see so many fundraisers where the NGO starts the fundraiser by writing about the NGO. They were founded in this particular year. These are the names of the founder. But think about it. Are these motivating enough for someone to make the donation? When was it founded? No, right? People immediately want to know whom are they going to affect, indirectly or directly. So it is very important that in a fundraiser, you have to make sure you have very strong, powerful images. At the same time, you have content that talks from a beneficiary's perspective. So maybe your organization works with children. Some organizations might be working with women and girl health hygiene. Some might be working for clean water, but ultimately the beneficiaries would be humans, right? In fact, even when it comes to animal organizations, we have had campaigns where they name these animals and they talk about help Robin, and Robin is a baby donkey. We have had campaigns like that, and these kind of campaigns actually do very well because they give a name to the beneficiary, who's going to be impacted. So I think this would be one of the most important things that you need to remember before anything else, that is a fundraiser should have this information. Okay, So now let me assume a situation, say for example, this one, that you have raised 31 lakhs. All right. Now you have gotten 1500 new donors. So can any one of you tell me, do you think a donation of a lakh is more important, or a donor who has donated a lakh is more important? And why?
Please raise your hand if you want to take this, or write in the chat, up to you. And we'll allow you to talk. You have a couple of answers in the chat, Vaidehi. I don't know if you want to bounce on them.
Oh, one sec. Yes, so one person has said that beneficiaries are most important and how these funds would improve the situation, right? Donation of a lakh. Correct. Okay. So yes, so I'm basically getting a mix.
Wait, Vaidehi, there's Prantik who has raised his hand. I'm gonna.
All right, please.
Prantik.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Hi, I'm Prantik. I think for me, the donor is more important here because that amount of 1 lakh can vary from time to time. But probably I'm thinking from the perspective of building a relationship with the donor who actually bothers about this cause and may actually continue to have recurring donations in future as well if we come up with better causes and or relevant causes that attracts the interest.
Right. Actually, you're correct. So although 1 lakh is very important, so for example, in this particular fundraiser, if I get a lakh donation, I'll immediately jump a step. Although that's very important, but what we have to see is that if you're trying to build a long funnel where you're trying to increase the number of donations you get, maybe quarter on quarter or year on year, it is extremely important to make sure that the donor who has donated this 1 lakh is happy about it and at the same time involved with your organization. Especially if you are a smaller organization, it's easy for you to take care of such donors, right? So in that case, we always suggest that it's important for you to ensure that they get timely updates and you secure this particular donor, because as one of you correctly said, that it's possible that this person might come back and make another donation, or if this person who has the capacity to donate a lakh starts a fundraiser for you. Think about it. If Alia Bhatt starts a fundraiser, so even if she only reaches out to her friend circle, people whom she will reach out to will also have a capacity to donate a lakh, right? So anyone who has the capacity to donate a lakh might have a minimum of 5 people who has a large capacity to donate. So you have to, basically this question is, as one of you put in the chat, the trick question. So it is exactly that. So I'm basically giving you an option that, do you want to take 500 rupees right now, or do you want to wait out a month, wait out an year and take 50,000 rupees? So that's exactly what this is, that you can either make sure that you reach out to a lot of people, get these donations, or you service them, give them enough information, keep in touch, have personalized communication sent to them so that tomorrow you can turn them into supporters. So if I have to give you an example, so let me show you this one. There is one, I would say, complaint or comment we hear very frequently from a lot of donors, and that is NGOs do not tell us more frequently about where the funds have gone and how are they being implemented and utilized. So this is one of the most common, comment we have heard. And we see that some organizations are really good at posting updates. So on Keto, we have customized an entire channel so that you can post updates, so that you can actually write about what is happening, not just one, multiple, how many ever you want. So this has become something very crucial, is because we have identified that the importance of updating the donor, keeping them in your entire journey. If you keep someone in your journey, that person will definitely come back someday and contribute in some way or the other. May not just be money, but also getting more people in some way or the other. And that's why, let me tell you about another vertical that Keto handles, our organization. So we do not only work with non-profits, but we also work with other sectors. And one of such sectors is medical. So in medical, we actually reach out to the hospitals and we try to identify cases where there is a large medical bill, say for example 20 lakhs, and their monthly income is only 10,000 rupees. So there is no way these people can actually afford a 20 lakh surgery for the babies. In those cases, what we do is that we actually become their sole promoter of their fundraisers, and we sponsor the ads. These are the ads that you see most of the time of Keto, if any of you have. So so in this particular case, Keto actually acts as a promoter of a fundraiser, and let me tell you, we give donations a lot of value. So we actually publicize it in such a way that you will get timely donations. And trust me, we have people who have come back and made donations 23 times after making their first donation. That's how impactful it is. The reason I'm telling you this is because there is a team in Keto, and the name of the team is Updates Team. It's so important to put updates that we have an entire team that is dedicated to calling people, getting to know how the beneficiaries are, getting pictures from those beneficiaries and updating it for the donors. So this is something that you should be doing. I know it is difficult, especially with the whole bandwidth issues, but if you are prioritizing building a strong donor funnel, then this is absolutely important. This is like you're saying, because education takes 12 years to complete, I don't want to go to school. It's like that. Although this is difficult to do, but you have to, because other than this, there is no other way for you to sustainably improve. So yeah, so these are some important aspects of a fundraiser that you should make sure you have in mind before you start. So other than this, I also want to talk about some do's and don'ts of a fundraiser. So the first thing that I want to talk about is, I see a lot of fundraisers fail because of lack of promotion. So it is extremely important that who promotes the fundraiser should be clear, especially when NGOs have joint initiatives with maybe corporates or other alliances, other voluntary group, etc. At that time, it gets a little hazy on who is going to be the primary promoter. A lot of times it happens with us that people think Keto will be the primary promoter. It can never work out. If you're talking about an organic campaign and you want to have a longer pipeline, it's not possible you outsource the way you get your money. Think about it. In your house, you want to get a salary so that you can run the house. If you're going to outsource how you get salary, then you're always going to be dependent on someone to get money, right? So this is exactly the same. So we always try to work with organizations that have a very good business acumen, as in someone who understands that they need to build their long-term strategy well. And then after that, they try to look for collaboration. So if you are in process of looking for different collaborations through which you can increase your, fundraising range or sphere, in that case, be extremely sure who is going to promote your fundraiser, because the money that is going to come in is going to completely dependent on this particular person's promotion style. The second thing I want to talk about is, do not think I have a very large social media network, or my organization has a very large social media network, this will work out. I will put a post on my social media and people will pour money into. It does not happen that way. Let me tell you, we have had organizations that have gotten Dalai Lama to tweet for their organizations, and they did not bring in money. Yes, Amitabh Bachchan has tweeted out fundraisers and has not gotten money in. So it's not about how big your reach is on social media, but rather how you communicate and how you position your communications. So first thing is that no one anywhere is typing in, I want to donate, whom should I? No one. No one is actually in the mood to donate. It is up to you to make sure you create that kind of need, or you create that kind of empathy with someone. So how you put your pictures is very important. Whom you target is very important. So let me give you an example. So if you want to put a post on social media, instead of just putting a post saying that, hi, this is our initiative, this is the fundraiser, please come and donate. Instead of writing this, maybe tag people. Because when you're tagging people, in that case, you are putting responsibility on someone to reply, or at least pay attention to this. So this is something that we always suggest, that if you're sharing the fundraiser, your plan A should never be open the fundraiser to public. Never. That should be your plan B. The plan A should be first to reach out to people directly. And these direct communications could be emails, WhatsApp messages, groups, etc. So if you have maybe a voluntary group of your organization, put it on that. And when it is on zero, I mean, it is a big like a big blunder if you put a fundraiser that is on zero on social media. Never ever do that, because people do not come forward, and people are hesitant to come forward if there's no one in front of them, especially on social media. Maybe if you start a fundraiser, your founder puts in the first 1,000 rupees, and other employees and other volunteers or people whom you feel you can reach out to, have a direct communication, they put in some amount, and you have already raised around 25,000-35,000. Then you can put it on social media, and you will see that maybe some 10,000-15,000 will come in. But the point that I'm trying to make is that crowdfunding is not one to many, it is always one to one. That's how crowd, I would say, organic campaigns work. Think about it. Say, let me give you an example of a viral video. How does a video get viral? Have you ever seen a video get viral because someone posted it on their social media and left it? It's always like, I like this particular video, and you forward it to your friend forwards it to someone, and that particular person forwards it to maybe a group, and people in that particular group forward it to other people. So it's always one-to-one communication, and that's exactly what you need to do. You need to be very specific about whom you reach out to, especially in the beginning, because the first 2-3 donations act as proxies for your other donations. So for example, say I want to make a donation. I have a capacity to donate, like a good capacity. Maybe I can make a 5,000 rupees donation without thinking about it. But for a normal person, they might not have reference on what is a good donation. So say, for example, I look at a fundraiser and I see that someone has already put in a 1,000 rupee donation. Then people tend to copy that amount. So I will also put in 1,000 rupees. So another person will see that 2 people now have put in 1,000 rupees. So they also might put in 1,000. So it's possible without this proxy amount, people might have ended up putting just 100 rupees. So let me give you an example. A few years ago, I think before the release of the movie Padman, Sonam Kapoor and Akshay Kumar had done one fundraiser where they had recorded a video of themselves talking, and what they had said is that if you donate 400 rupees, it will cover one person's yearly sanitary requirements. This is what they had said. So initially, when we launched the fundraiser, we saw that immediately the next 20-25 transactions were only 400 rupees. And we thought that this is so less, like People have a opportunity and they're donating only 400 rupees. This was our mistake. So what we did is that we created a packet, like we created a suggestion which said that donate 1600 rupees and help 4 women. And we created these small packets, donate 800 rupees, help 2 women. And then we started seeing that people started donating 800 rupees, 1600 rupees instead of 400. So the point that I'm trying to make is that you need to prompt people to make a certain amount of donation. So you can either do that by actually putting those amounts, like prompting them that, okay, donate this amount, or by initially adding the amounts that you feel are good and sufficient for you to raise your target. Got it? So this is one thing. So another thing is how much should you allocate to crowdfunding? So although I know I've spoken about crowdfunding, I have spoken big numbers, I've shown you 31 lakhs, I've shown you 1.45 crores, but let me tell you, it's not very easy to raise a crore with crowdfunding immediately. It takes a lot of learnings. It takes a lot of planning to do so, because here you're dealing with 15,000 donors. If you raise 1.45 crores, you have 15,000 donors. You have to reach out to all of them, maybe not personally, but through an email, to thank them all. They might come back to you asking for more questions. They need receipts. They have other questions. They need updates. Some of them might have complaints, etc., etc. So this is a lot of work. So that's why we always recommend our organizations to take it slow. So maybe initially, if you have a budget, maybe only allocate 10-15% to crowdfunding. That's it. Only 10-15%. Check how it works out. Is the donor information that you're getting okay with your accounts team? Is everything going well? Are you able to manage the donors' expectations? Are you able to meet them properly? Once you have, once you've done one pilot, seen how you raise funds, then you start going for ambitious projects, because there are so many conversations we have where people come and say, humko 10 crore raise karna hai. 10 crores, like put 10 crores as my goal amount. But ultimately they end up raising 15,000 rupees, because 10 crores is an extremely discouraging amount for someone who's donating the first. Think about it. Even if I think that 5,000 rupees is a good amount to donate, think about it. Will my 5,000 make any difference to a goal that is 10 crores? Why will you make that donation then? You might think you're too small. This is for people who can donate in lakhs. Maybe this crowdfunding campaign is only for HNIs. That's why it's important that you take smaller amounts, break your target into smaller amounts. If you have a goal amount as high as 10 crores, then in that case, find people. Maybe go for a broadcasting network, like get some FM to talk about your fundraiser. If that's something that you can go, spend a little bit of money, boost your fundraiser if that's something that you would like to do. But make sure that your expectations are set right. Most of the time we see a lot of disappointment happening around crowdfunding is because you expect something else and something else happened. It's like going to a bank, or rather going to an electronic store and buying a phone and being disappointed because all your contacts are already not there in the phone. It's your responsibility to either get your secretary or your children to update all that information. So a platform like Ketto will not help you go from 0 to 10 crores in overnight. You will have to come up with a very straightforward, clear goals and incentives. And organizations like us, which has seen a lot of fundraisers succeed and fail, can give you the right suggestions, can help you with the right technology to elevate you from 0 to maybe 10 crores over the period of a few years. So I think this is where I would like to conclude. Before I completely pass it on to Pauline for questions, I want to just give you a small brief about how to work with Ketto. So Ketto basically, as I've been talking for the last 1 hour, is that Ketto believes in long-term relationships rather than a relationship for a fundraiser. So we try to work with a small amount of NGOs, but these NGOs we try to give a lot of attention to, talk to them, because every organization has different needs. So for us to be able to give that kind of quality assistance, we have a small group of organizations we focus on. So if you want to apply on Ketto and you want to start your own crowdfunding campaigns, in that case, there is an application form you can apply, and our team goes through the applications and selects the organization that we can take in a quarter. We have the applications open every quarter. And once you are in, then we assign someone to you who can talk to you, who can understand the style of your organization and give you suggestions accordingly. So as Pauline had mentioned earlier, I will float the links of these registration and application forms so that you all have access to them. So I think I'm done here. I hope I have answered. I've not bored you all for a long period. I'm up for questions and answers.
Thank you so much, Vaidehi. There's quite a few questions that have come throughout the session. I will try and put them across to you so we can take them one by one. But before I do, the tips were so useful. Thank you so much for all of your insights. It's going to be very useful for, I'm sure, a lot of organizations that are present here. A couple of questions. I'm going to try to bundle them a bit. A couple of questions are a little technical about the platforms that are available to use. We had a couple of questions like this. Typically, what is the percentage or the commission that Ketto and the overall average on the crowdfunding platform market is taking from the amount raised? And second question that I saw as well is, what happens if the target amount is not reached, in terms of what amount of money goes back to the organization nonetheless? If you can just clear this out. Okay, so about the pricing and fee structure. So if I have to only speak about Ketto, then since the last COVID crisis, that's 2020, April 31st, we stopped taking a commission on our platform and we made it commissionless. So Ketto doesn't charge a commission. But to sustain ourselves, we have a tip that we have introduced on the fundraiser. So any donor, while making a donation, say for example, I make a 1,000 rupee donation, I have an option to add a 50 rupee tip. So the 50 rupees goes to me and the 1,000 rupees goes to the organization. But while this 1,000 rupees are processed, there's a payment gateway charge the banks have. And this is actually a standard fee across the entire industry, international and national, that is 3%. So this 3% plus GST, so that makes it 3.45% is the total amount that is charged, and the GST is only applicable on INR. If any money comes from through any other currency, this is not applicable. So this is what Ketto charges. Other platforms do have a tip model, and a few of them still work on a commission basis where I can't speak for another organization, but the commission ranges from, I think, around 4% to 10%, depending on what are the services that you avail from them. And this was, I think, your question number 1. Can you please tell me the second part of the question? Yes, sure. Question number 2 was, what happens if the target amount is not reached? Right. Yes. So actually nothing happens. The goal that we put, that's more for the representation purposes, just to tell people that this is how much we require. Say, for example, if you require 40 lakhs, but you're able to only raise 30 lakhs, in that case, the entire 30 lakhs is transferred to you. It's up to you. If you're raising funds for something that cannot be done, if the entire amount is not raised, then again, the decision falls in your hand. You can either refund it or you can use it for some other purposes. But the whole point is, we try to check the authenticity and the ethical part of a fundraiser. After that, the whole policing part, like, is the money going for the right use? All of that has to be done by your side. I'm sure NGOs have enough organizations doing policing for them at the moment in the current scenario. Thank you, Vaidehi. And I actually on top of that, I would add one question myself in terms of the duration of a campaign. And let's say we're panicking because the amount hasn't been reached, and maybe we think that adding another 15 days or a month is going to help. Is there this flexibility of changing the timeline too?
Absolutely. So once you create a fundraiser, you have access to the fundraiser completely. You can in fact change the goal too. So for example, if you put a goal of 1 lakh, maybe you underestimated yourself. You hit that target in a day. So then what? So you can actually increase the goal. So you have that access to increase the goal amount. You have an access to edit the fundraiser, increase the end date if you want to increase it by some amount. In fact, after your KYC is done with our organization, you can transfer funds whenever you need. So you do not have to wait till the end of the fundraiser to transfer the funds. You can make partial payments as and when the funds come.
Got it. Brilliant. Thank you, Vaidehi. A couple more that have come during the session. One of them was about the topic or the cause behind a crowdfunding campaign. Can crowdfunding be raised for other reasons than social or medical? And if so, how?
Yes, absolutely. So we, like every crowdfunding platform, has a few causes that they specifically support. So for example, for Keto, we support any cause that's helpful. I know it's a very broad terminology, but we look at campaigns that fall in this particular social or like community welfare kind of an campaign. So to give you an example, people have raised funds on a platform to create documentary films. People have raised funds for their education. I got into an Ivy League but do not have funds to fund my education. That kind of campaigns. Students have come and raised funds for their international competitions like hockey or hyperloop, etc. So other than social medical campaigns, these are some of the other campaigns you can raise funds for.
Awesome, thank you. Another one, which I think is key for a lot of organizations, if you don't have FCRA, can you anyway bring funds from foreign sources while crowdfunding? What's the regulation?
So basically, we have a blanket rule that if an organization does not have permission from the government to receive foreign funds, then we do not encourage that. The only way we can do that is through a sister organization that has an FCRA. So if you can, collaborate with another organization that has FCRA, because right now that's how a lot of organizations are coping with such situations, that they bring in another organization that helps. So maybe we also can help you connect with, organizations that might be able to help you, but that's it. We can help you connect with other organizations, but as a blanket rule, we need an NGO which has an FCRA to transfer funds.
And I remember we created a campaign on Keto recently, and one of the documents that your team was asking was this FCRA document. Yeah, indeed. I'm going to unmute Madhav. Madhav, I see that you have raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Paul. My question is naturally to our trainer. You said refund. You referred refund. I mean, once money is received, where it is to refund back and whom to refund back is my first question. Then whenever the money is there, money goes to the NGO's account or money goes to Keto account is the second one. And third one is the payment links. You said that, okay, they charge a commission of 3% or 2.5% or something like that. If there is any NEFT option is available, then actually there will not be any commission to be paid to the gateway.
Got it. Okay, so I'll come with the first. I'll talk about the refund part. So basically, what happens is that our refund system works exactly how any e-commerce website refund happens. So for example, you buy shoes from Amazon and you want to return them. So when you click on return, the money comes back to you in your same account by which you made the payment, right? So that's the exact same logic that's used over here too. So when say, for example, a campaigner says, I have to refund everything, I want to refund it. So the money goes back to the donor's account directly from the same mode they transacted with.
Okay.
So that's your question number one. The other one that you had asked was
Accounting.
sorry.
Whether the money goes to your account or goes to NGO's account.
Correct.
My question.
So actually, technically, the money goes from a donor to the NGO, but it gets routed through a Keto's holding account. So it does not work exactly how like a personal or a corporate account works. It's basically an RBI's intermediary banks that store that funds. So we collate it all together. Most of the time, NGOs do not prefer getting small donations. Think about it. If you have raised around say 2 lakh rupees and you're going to get those in small amounts in 300 rupees, 400 rupees, your accounting team will go mad.
Go mad.
In that case, what we do is that we collect all of this in a holding account. And that stays in that holding account. In your dashboard, it will show that you're eligible to withdraw, say, 30,000 rupees. And that's it. And from there it goes. Yes, it is an escrow account. I didn't want to use jargon right now, so I thought I'll use something less than that. So yes, that's how the transfers happen. And coming to the last part of your question, can you please...
Payment. Yeah, I said whether it is a payment gateway or either a payment gateway, if they charge you money. Nowadays also, if you make any utility bills through a credit card, they charge you more money. But if you do it through NEFT, then it is, you don't lose anything.
Correct. So basically, if you look at any fundraiser, not just on Keto, but maybe like international or any other platform, you would see that we give all options. There are, I think, more than 13, in fact, 15 modes of payments that you can use. And the 3% is actually an average of all. So there are some international payments that charge almost up to 3.5, almost 4%. And there are some that only charge 0.7 or maybe 2.2%. So the 3% is actually an average of all of them. And if you look at it, most donations, almost 30% of the donations that come through UPI nowadays. That's easier. So it's actually very difficult for an organization to bifurcate and give it to you as per actuals. Like एक donation पे सिर्फ 0.9% कटेगा, another one पे 4% कटेगा. That becomes very difficult for accountant to...
Vaidehi, the point is that, say for example, suppose I want to donate say 10,000 bucks.
Right.
Then if there is a charge of 3%, naturally I am bearing 10,300 I am paying. And not the NGO which is paying 300 rupees.
Right.
So anyhow, NGO straightway gets 10,000 only. But to transfer 10,000 to NGO, I had to pay 10,300, for example. That's what I feel.
I don't think so. It's generally the donor gives a net of 10,000. A gross of 10,000. And the deductions that happen on the NGO's end. And the thing is, the use case that you're talking about is a very slim use case. And and the system that has been set is set in such a way that it caters to not just NGO but non-NGO donors also. So just for some simplicity, this is something that has been set up. But yeah, again, if you're talking about a single case, we always look everything on a case-by-case basis, and we try to accommodate, whatever works best in the interest of both organizations.
Great.
Thank you, Madhav. Thank you so much for your questions. Again, some other questions have come. Ajay, I have seen your questions on. Okay, so Vaidehi, Ajay is asking, what are maybe one or two examples of successful campaigns? You have given a couple of them during your talk today. Maybe you can think of one or two more to give as a case study. Mm-hmm. And so either you take this now or you take it after two more technical questions that have just come, which is there any minimum amount to donate? And are the donation recorded and provided to the NGO by each donor for tax exemption certificate? So in the order that you like.
Got it. I'll take Ajay's question last because I think that will be a little longer one. So before that, yes, the donations are recorded. So you get, in fact, for tax exemption receipts, we try to collect some crucial information about the donor too, like the citizenship of the donor, the PAN card number of the donor, as well as the passport number if it is a foreign citizen. So we give this particular data. The data will be available in the dashboard itself of the NGO. So whenever they're running the fundraiser, someone from the team can come and access that data at any time. So that should not be a problem. So I think that's one question I answered. The second question, can you please repeat that?
Is there any minimum amount to donate?
Right. So yes, we have a minimum of 300 rupees or $10. That's the minimum that we have kept. But the QR codes that we have that do not have a minimum amount. So if someone is extremely adamant that no, I only can donate 150 rupees, in that case, they can use the QR codes. But if they go through our contribute now button, they'll see a minimum of 300 rupees. And now coming to Ajay's question. So if you want a case study, I can talk about this one organization. Their name is Diya Ghar. Unfortunately, I don't have the links with me ready. I'll have to look for them and come back. But
share it in the follow-up email as well, Vaidehi, to all of the participants. Yeah,
absolutely. I'll do that. So there was this one person from this organization who knew about crowdfunding or was interested in raising funds because she had done it in another organization. So when she moved to this organization, she set up her own fundraiser. And this organization actually had a bad experience with Kettle. So they were very reluctant to raise funds with us. So they wanted to go with another competitor, but because she had a good experience with us with the other organization, she came and she raised funds and ended up raising, I think, around 4.5 lakhs only based on her potential and capacity. The NGO organization was not involved in it. In that time, we actually were constantly in touch, and because they had a bad experience, we wanted to show them, things that went wrong. We had more conversations. We actually spoke to the founder more often and convinced them to reach out to a few colleges that they used to be associated with for volunteering purposes. So the NGO basically sets up schools for construction workers' children. So they had a lot of volunteers come from local colleges nearby. So they actually approached a few, and I think a bunch of 10, 12 of such college students started fundraisers for them because we insisted them to use peer-to-peer fundraising. I think that time they ended up raising somewhere around 9.5 lakhs. I think this is something that motivated them to take this up, more seriously. The next time was COVID time, and they actually got XLRI's batch. XLRI is a management school. So they got a batch of XLRI students to actually come and start a fundraisers for them. They educated these students on how to raise funds, what to do, how they did. And the next year when they came, they raised somewhere around, they raised somewhere around 15 lakhs. And this year, when they came with a larger group of students. And I think the fundraisers are still going on, and they've raised around 35 lakhs till now and still counting. So the whole point is this organization went from 4 lakhs to 35 lakhs in the past 3 years. And the reason is because they put in that effort in understanding how to do peer-to-peer fundraising. And we could see the process that initially the campaign, how it was, and then they improved the quality of images, they made things better, they communicated with the right people. They went from local colleges to XLRI, which is an MBA college with a better capacity students. So you see that they kept correcting each one of the aspects of crowdfunding to reach a good amount, and they're still counting. So this is something that maybe you can also do. Take it slow and try to understand crowdfunding better.
Thank you so much, Vaidehi. And it seems that when we connect two of your insights today, one of them was don't run a campaign just after the other, because you lose the credibility and the weight of one. But year over year, repeating a specific campaign and engaging donors year after year and being patient in that process can, as you just said, prove to be very useful.
Absolutely.
Great. We do have one last question. I don't know how you would like to take it. And I don't know if you see the Q&A box, and it was also in the chat from Dr. Gaba, who gives you who gave you a couple of links of a crowdfunding campaign that they ran. I think we might, I don't know, up to you. Either you take it now, but you might not have time to take the time to think about what has gone wrong with this campaign and why it did not maybe reach its potential. So maybe you can do it after the session as well. We can share the links with you, and you can take a bit of time to think it over.
Got it. So can we have Dr. Kanchan to speak? Maybe I can ask a few questions and that would be enough. Unfortunately, I do not have a Facebook account, so it's difficult for me to access a Facebook link.
No. Dr. Kanchan, are you around? I can see your name. I have allowed you to speak. Could you unmute yourself and maybe tell a bit more about this campaign of yours, if you are around? For anyone else, don't hesitate. We have maybe one time for one more question, 1 or 2 more questions until 4:30. Don't hesitate to put them. Okay, I have Dr. Kanchan, just let us know when you can hear us. In the meantime, Vaidehi, you have another question. Is Keto also looking at helping startups raise funds, such as a Kickstarter platform?
Actually, no. So raising funds for loans and business is something that Keto does not cover. It's not part of a mandate. And right now, even in India, I'm personally not aware of the laws that revolve around this. So on a platform, we do not have business campaigns.
Are you aware of any other platform in India that would be business or startup?
Fuel a Dream. I know that Fuel a Dream is one of such organizations that does help with such campaigns, but I do not think BitGiving was there, but I think they've shut down a few years ago.
Got it. Thank you so much, Vaidehi. Any other person, don't hesitate to raise your hand or write in the chat. Otherwise, we will close. One thing that I wanted to say is I've run a couple of crowdfunding campaigns myself in the past. And what has always been very useful is to have an actual person or a team being really responsive and holding your hand throughout the process. And I've worked a little bit with Keto, and it seems that you really have that human touch. That it's not only a digital platform, but if you want to reach out to someone at Keto, this is definitely something that you can do to ask for advice and take your crowdfunding campaign further.
Yes, absolutely. Because we personally, at least in my team, we know that how annoying it could be if you are reaching out to someone and you hit a robotic voice which speaks garbage.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's something that we have tried to ensure that we give that kind of quality experience to each and every client of ours. And that's another reason why we restrict the number of clients we work with, because it's not humanly possible for us to have maintain that standard if we are opening a platform wide.
Absolutely. And one last question, Vaidehi, could you send we will do that in the follow-up email as well, but at least as of now, also in the chat, send the form link, the application form link on Keto. That would be great.
I'll do that. I actually have it right now. So
great. Super. I hope you all have received it. We will also include it into the follow-up email. Super. Anything else, Vaidehi, that you would like to add, or are we good to close up?
No, I think that's it. I spoke for enough amount of time. I hope although everything that I've spoken about resonates somewhere with all of you, it's useful for all of you. And next time, if we have a conversation, it would be building on the conversation we already had in this. So that's it. Thanks a lot, Pauline, for giving me the opportunity to speak here. And I hope I actually interact with a lot more of you in the coming few months.
Thank you so much, Vaidehi. On behalf of WISE and Youth for Sustainability India Alliance, I have mentioned these two organizations, WISE and Youth for Sustainability India Alliance, at the beginning of the session. These two are alliances and communities of organizations in India, and we would love all of the organizations that have joined us today to also join this community that usually creates events and opportunities to learn, such as we did see today. Thank you so much, everyone. Please take care. We will be in touch with you soon with new opportunities and the next masterclass and the next session. Vaidehi, thank you so much. Really enjoyed, really learned a lot myself today. And let's keep in touch. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Take
you,
care, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.